would get angry and mad at them. I would say mean things to them like, I wish I was this time. They understood one thing. They understood that, as the Ten Commandments told us, and the Sixth Commandment says, thou shalt not kill. They understood that we shouldn't kill. They just said, okay, check, I got that. Especially since all y'all are in school, that no one is mean to you or says anything to you to get you angry or you're mean back to them. All right? So let's pray. Father God, thank you for these children before me, Lord. I pray that you will just protect them and look after them, Lord, especially as they were in school. I pray, Father, that we will have a firm understanding, Lord, that anger can sometimes lead to danger, Father. And I just pray that you just guide our tongues through that. And it's all in Christ's name. Amen. In my heart, such as angels will sing of love, and the whole day long in the joy and part, 'tis a song of redeeming love. Of his love I shall ever sing, till above I behold the King, to eternity Good morning. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for allowing me to once again to fill in for our pastor as he is traveling. He's in Louisville. He'll be traveling back this evening. Spending some time with Hillary, his daughter. And one thing I forgot to mention during our welcome, we have a church conference tonight. Don't forget about it. It's at 6 p.m. That's where we'll give updates on the business of the church. Also, our ministries will give a account of things that's been going on this past quarter. So we invite you to come out tonight at 6 p.m. for that. So this Sunday, I have the privilege of continuing our sermon series that Jimmy started last week, which is called Seriously Jesus, the Outrageous Demands of Jesus. Last week we saw some things that Jesus said to his followers that could be considered kind of outrageous, because he was talking about you must hate your father, mother, brother, sister. You must be willing to give all of that up in order to follow me and be my disciple. Just as Pastor Jimmy explained to us last week, that these people, when Jesus said these things, took a step back and said, okay, I was willing to follow you, and I was tracking with you with everything that was being said, but you just said something that I don't know if I can wrap my mind around fully, or if I do wrap my mind around it fully, am I willing to take that step and do what you've asked me to do? See, the thing that we have to understand is that it wasn't that the people that were following Jesus couldn't understand Jesus. It was that they did understand what he was literally saying, but what he said seemed to go against what he had said before. In Matthew 5:21 through 22, which we'll be looking at shortly, is a case in point. So let's see what Jesus said in these verses. If you have your Bible, you turn to Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 through 22. And this is going to be what we camp on, what we're going to look at for a little while this morning. Starting with verse 21, it says, "You have heard that our ancestors were told," basically what he was saying, he said, "You have heard it in the past, that you were told, excuse my mistype there, you must not murder. If you commit murder, you are subject to judgment." Which is something that they could understand, because they understood what the Ten Commandments was, what the Sixth Commandment was, of thou shalt not murder. But I say, if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. If you call someone an idiot, some translations say a fool. Others may say something else. But basically, I like this translation, that you live in translation gives, because this is something that we can wrap our mind around. If you call someone an idiot, you are in danger of the fires of hell. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you this morning again for just giving us the opportunity to come in your house, Father, as we continue our act of worship by the study of your word. I pray, Lord, that you will accomplish what you need to accomplish through your word, Father, because you say it will not return you void. I pray, Father, that everything that is said today, Lord, is all about you. It's not about me. I pray, Lord, that I become less and less and you become more and more. I pray, Father, for someone within this congregation today that does not know your Son as Lord and Savior, Lord, through something that is said, I pray that you just soften their heart, Lord, open their ears, and they can realize that today can be that day of salvation for them. We ask us all in your Son, in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. One commentary tells the reader this, that the first of Jesus' 5 discourses in Matthew, which we know as Sermon on the Mount, was a discourse on kingdom living. The sermon describes the kind of righteousness he expected of his followers. And we even saw that last week with the verses that we looked at from Luke, that he was saying, if you really want to be my follower, you really want to come and be part of me, this is the stuff you must be willing to give up. Are you willing to give up everything for me? The righteousness surpasses the legalistic religion of the Pharisees and must be lived so as to impact the world. That's what he was trying to get us to understand. It's like, He was sitting there and telling his followers, he's like, yeah, you've heard that, we shouldn't commit murder. Yeah. I got that. Yeah, check. Don't commit murder. I'm good. And then he throws a little bit of a curveball to him and says, okay, I'm going to take it a step further. Don't get angry at someone. Because your anger, when you allow anger to take control of you, that is something that can be almost as bad as murder. Because we all know that the tongue is one of those things that can bring blessings, as the Bible says, but it also can bring curses. We're going to look at that today. And so we get to this point here of he's trying to get us to understand that every aspect of a true believer's conduct must be characterized by a righteousness that surpasses mere appearance. We do a good job of looking good on the outside, but how are we on the inside? And how we think and how we act, is it really matching up to what we say that we are? And so we come to this question. How can Jesus say that if you are angry with someone, that you are subject to judgment? Or better yet, let's look at it this way. What did Jesus mean when he said, what we looked at in this verse, if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. If you call someone an idiot, you are in danger of being brought before the court. Basically, he's saying, you've been brought before the court for murder, even this, if you call someone an idiot. And if you curse someone, you are in danger of the fires of hell. As mentioned last Sunday by Pastor Jimmy, part of this answer to this statement has to do with something linguists call a hyperbole. And as he mentioned last week, hyperbole is an exaggerated or claim not to be taken literally. Sometimes Jesus used this in order to garner people's attention and bring home an important part. And this is what he's trying to get people to understand, this thing that has to do with anger and the things we have to do with the things we call people. In this passage, Jesus is emphasizing how anger can cause danger in a Christian's life and how important it is to control the tongue. And so this brings us to our first point. The tongue has the power to bring life, but also has the power to bring death. You're probably thinking, well, how's that? Well, let's look at some scripture. And you can just write these down. The first one is Luke 6:45. It says, a good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart. And an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. What we're feeling in our heart, our mouth is going to spew out our feelings. Many of you could say, yeah, I've been there, or I've been on the receiving end, or I've been the one that has brought good things or bad things because of how my heart has felt. Another one, you can write this down, is Proverbs 18:21. It says, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Ephesians 4:29 says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building up others according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. James 1:19 says it, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James is just emphasizing what he had probably heard his brother say many times. Prior, maybe going back to what the verse we just read. Proverbs 15:4 says this, a soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. It can bring life and make one feel great, or it can bring death and make someone feel terrible or feel this small or even feel worthless. The last one, again, I want to emphasize this one from James 1:19 again. It says, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. See, the command, do not murder, comes straight from the Ten Commandments as we look, because he told the people who respond say, you have heard from the ancients, or you've heard in the past, that do not commit murder. So you understand that. But from Jesus' contrast and clarification, we can summarize that the scribes and Pharisees limited their interpretation of murder to its most literal meaning, mostly taking a human life. But it goes a step further. Jesus broadened their understanding of murder to include wrongful anger that might, in some cases, lead to literal murder. I'm not saying if we get angry, all of us in here is going to lead us to murder. But we probably all have gotten to the point at some time, gotten so angry at someone that you just wanted to choke them. Or really tell them how you feel. And that's what Jesus was trying to get us to understand right here, that this anger can sometimes push us over the edge. Not to the point that we're going to commit murder, but we may get to that point that we say something to someone else or do something that we may end up regretting later, that will come back and haunt us. He included this: harmful words that can kill a person's spirit is almost just as bad. Which leads to our second point here. Anger is only one letter away from danger. One letter, that D, from going from anger to danger. And the reason how I got this point here was I was trying to look up some stuff, the commentary and other things that go along for this morning's message, and I ran across a poem by someone that had the same title. It spoke this in the poem. And it goes on to explain that our words, our actions, can literally, as the Bible says, it can bring life or it can bring death. And how we approach someone. And the words that come out of our mouth, is it words of love? Or is it words that are coming out that pushes them away and is condemning? And they look at us and like, that's what being a Christian is about. That's what a Christian is. How are you supposed to live a Christian? Not following nothing. It's one letter away from danger. This statement, as I mentioned, was taken from online. Now, it also went into to express some of the things that sometimes we may hear. And that's why I was asking the children in the children's sermon, especially since they started back in school, has anyone been mean to you? Have they said things, they're great? Because sometimes as you go along, especially in elementary school, that's when a lot of people, your friends, even your best friends, say, oh, I hate you. I don't want you to be my friend. I don't like you. You're stupid. And then it progresses as we get older into high school or our adult lives. I wish I wasn't your parents. I wish you weren't my parents. I wanted to force. I wish you were dead. It's these things that sometimes come out, these statements that we hear that sometimes we don't realize that where the root of it comes from. And it just talks about what Jesus was speaking here, that, yeah, we as people, we understand, yeah, we're not supposed to murder. Death is bad. You kill someone, you go to jail. But we don't stop to take the time to realize that this anger that sometimes we have, that if it's not controlled, if it's not handled in the right ways, this anger can lead to danger and end up making more damage or as much damage as if we just literally murdered the person. If we were honest, at one moment or another, we have all spoken hurtful or hateful words. Yet typically most of us dismiss such comments by saying, you really made me angry. I lost my temper. I didn't really mean it. I was just joking. Have any of us ever been that way? Just played it off after we say something harmful? I was just joking. You know I didn't mean it. Because I was trying to cover up some of the harm that had been done. While it is tempting to minimize our angry words, words, thoughts, and attitudes. The truth is there can be danger in anger. This is a feeling since anger, as I mentioned in this point, is only one letter away from danger. See, previously in chapter 5, verse 20, Jesus said that our righteousness must surpass that of the scribes and Pharisees, because these were the religious leaders. They thought they had it all together. They're the ones that told everyone else how you should act or how you should do things. But he was telling them it goes past what the righteousness they thought they had. He stops preaching and starts meddling. That's what I like about Jesus, especially when you start looking at the tough sayings he has said. Because a lot of people didn't like it because it went against everything that they thought was the right thing to do. He starts meddling. See, seriously, Jesus could have tackled any subject here, but he begins the body of his sermon by dealing with anger, a sin that many of us struggle with. And then in 5:21, Jesus says, you have heard that the ancients, the Israelites, were told you should not commit murder, and whoever commits murder shall be liable to the court. See, this opening phrase, you have heard, alerts us to the fact that Jesus is going to quote the Old Testament. He quotes the sixth commandment, you shall not commit murder, which we get and can see is in Exodus 20:13. He then reminds us of the penalty. You shall be liable to court. At this point, Jesus' listeners must have been thinking, yep, as I mentioned before, we got it. You're not supposed to commit murder. We've heard that one before, and we've behaved. We're not murderers. We're not guilty. We're good. We're moral. We're ethical people. So preach on, preacher. What what we're saying. We got you. Yeah, keep going. I like what we're hearing. You got to admit it's always more comfortable when the preacher talks about other people, right? You probably heard people say, not a bad person. I mean, I've never killed anyone. Even as Christians, it is easy to be smug and think that since we haven't physically murdered anyone, that this commandment doesn't apply to us. But Jesus undoes this thinking. He presses the sixth command in when he dropped a preaching bomb. He's like, but mess up your world, your thinking. Because in 5:22, Jesus declares, but I say to you that anyone who is angry with his brother shall be guilty before the court. And whoever says to his brother, you good for nothing, which is, some translations may have that, or you fool, or as I put on the screen with the New Living Translation says, you idiot. And that's something I can wrap my mind around, because I've said that word many times to people, especially driving in Atlanta traffic. Or as when I lived in Alabama, for those who have traveled to Birmingham and had the pleasure of traveling on Highway 280. People cut you off. I'll put on a blinker. Drive. You idiot! What are you doing? So that's a word I can read. But basically what he's saying is, but whoever says to his brother, you good for nothing, shall be guilty before the Supreme Court of the court of their days. And whoever says, you fool, shall be guilty enough to go into the fiery hell. Jesus begins by saying, but I say to you. He is affirming everything in the Old Testament, but he's also fulfilling it. He's quoting it, but he's also fulfilling it. That is, he is filling it up of meaning. What was implicit in the Old Testament law, Jesus made explicit. He's giving insight into the original purpose of God's law, a purpose that has been lost among the teachers of his day. And that's what he was trying to get them to understand. Jesus is saying, I'm going to the very heart of the law to show you how you can live out its deepest meaning. Because he even told us, I didn't come to do away with the law, I came to fulfill it. And this is basically what he was trying to get them to understand, how to bring out the deepest meaning of what the law said. In doing so, he moves from the fruit of murder to the root of murder, an evil heart of attitude. Jesus insists that we are all guilty of murder because we've been angry in word, thought, attitude, and actions. We've all been guilty. I know I have, because I just told you I was, especially when I'm driving. Because I look at people and the way they drive, and I think, you shouldn't be driving. And I've said some nice choice words to them before. Knowing they wouldn't want to hear me and knowing it didn't do any good, but I still let the words fly. Jesus insists, as I mentioned, that we are all guilty of murder because we've been angry in word, thought, attitude, and action. In other words, refraining from homicide doesn't impress God. On the contrary, since God looks upon the heart, unrighteous anger can render one subject to God's judgment. The term court and Supreme Court refers to God's heavenly court, since no human court is competent of trying a case of eternal anger. Jesus goes even further when he states that the offender is guilty enough to go to hell. See, that's something right there that he was, turning things upside down. Anger leading me to go to hell. Have you ever been angry with anyone in word, thought, or attitude? Because Jesus says you deserve to go to hell. Fortunately, Christ's death has made salvation available to those who believe. If Jesus hadn't paid for your sin with his death, you would spend eternity in hell, not just for murder, but even for speaking insults. See, that's what this thing we have to realize. Because Jesus was trying to understand and get to, it's like, look, even our words, being angry with someone and speaking death upon them through our words has consequences. And these consequences are just as bad as if you just went and killed someone. Thus, we must nurture and esteem our relationships, which brings me to the third point. Our relationship with God is partly contingent on how we treat others. So let's break down these insults quickly. The phrase translated good for nothing is the Aramaic term raka. Sounds like I'm getting ready to spit up a loogie. Raka. Like you're building it up. Huh? Yeah, y'all started imaging it, right? That's the only thing you can remember from this sermon is Jason talking about loogies. But this term raka is a term that is Aramaic. And in Jesus' day, this term was an insult that meant something like, you worthless son of the motherless goat. I know that sounds weird that's saying there, that's what it sounds like, but that is what it basically meant. It was an insult. The word means you brainless blockhead, you empty-headed fool, you idiot, you imbecile. I think you get the idea. You used the colorful description of raka when you were angry and wanted to attack a person's self-worth and dignity. The same is true of you fool. The word behind fool is the Greek noun moros, which is where we get moron. And these terms, especially in Jesus' day, moros was used to describe a person's mental abilities. However, it was also used to describe a person's moral character. If you refer to someone as a moros, you were calling that person a stupid liar, a stupid cheater, or a stupid infidel. It was an insult on someone's morals as well as their character. And although these two words seem to be synonymous, raka seems to express contempt for a man's head, his intellect, where moros is expressing contempt for his heart, which is his character. See, the problem of name calling was far more serious in Jesus' society than it is in ours today. There was an honor and shame society. Most people had little to trade with except their honor. And to belittle one's person's honor publicly was a serious matter. If a person was to lose his or her good reputation, it was about the same as dying. Jesus seems to say that when you treat persons as nothing by calling them names, you have in effect already murdered them because you're attacking their honor, you're attacking who they are. Character assassination is just another type of murder. It's interesting that Jesus includes the phrase with his brother, but I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother, isn't it true that our anger tends to flare up most often against those we know best and love the most? Colossians 3:19 says this. Paul writes, husbands, love your wives. Do not be embittered against them. Although this verse is directed towards husbands, it is applicable to wives as well. We need to stop our guilt trips, fault-finding, name-calling, yelling, sarcasm, and blaming. Speaking once again to husbands. Peter says if we don't treat our spouse with love and respect, our prayers will go unhindered. Ephesians 6:4 says this when it talks about our relationship with God is partly contingent on how we treat others. Ephesians 6:4, Paul writes this, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. As parents, we need to make sure that we show our children God's love and compassion. And then 1 Timothy 2:8 says this, therefore I want the men in every place to pray, lifting up holy hands without wrath and desertion. The qualification for me to pray is to forsake ungodly anger. If we are angry, our fellowship with God is adversely affected, which means we lack power. And so the next time you become angry at your spouse or your children or a fellow believer, think long and hard before saying something harmful to them. Don't be lured into thinking that it's no big deal if you shout at someone, because it is a big deal. Which leads me to my last point. And this goes into further of what Jesus said here. Verse 23, if you have your Bible, you look at verse 23. I didn't put it on the screen because if you don't have it, just sit there and listen to what I'm about to say. Verses 23 to 25 wraps this up with point 4, which God will not accept our gift at the altar until we reconcile with our neighbor. See, anger happens, and sometimes we say things that come out from that anger, or someone says something to us. But the thing is, we have to be reconciled with them. And this is the most important thing from understanding anger. Because there's been many times that I've gotten angry with someone. And sometimes it was, there's a reason for becoming angry with them. But I've had to go and reconcile with them. I've had to eat crow, as a lot of people say. To be reconciled with them because I realized that because God forgave me, and I'm a sinner, and so if I'm really going to be a follower of Christ and really live for Him, that reconciliation has to happen. Verse 23. So if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple, and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar. Go and be reconciled to that person. Then come and offer your sacrifice to God. When you on the way to the court with your adversary, set your differences quickly. Otherwise, your accuser may hand you over to the judge, who will hand you over to the officer, and you'll be thrown into prison. Verse 26. And if that happens, you surely won't be free again until you have paid the last penny. And basically what he's saying here is reconciliation has to happen. God will not accept our gift at the altar till we reconcile with our neighbor. Jesus gives two illustrations exposing the seriousness of anger. The first is in a worship context, which is verses 23 to 24. And the second is in a legal setting, which is 25 to 26. In these verses, Jesus changes from everyone to you. Instead of saying everyone, he's singling us out to ensure that every disciple applies what he says directly to himself or herself. In his first illustration, Jesus says reconciliation takes precedence over worship. It says, therefore, if you're presenting your offering at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your offering there before the altar and go be reconciled to your brother, and then come and present your offering. And so we have to realize, and when he's saying this, that reconciliation is important. Reconciliation is important enough to interrupt worship. Harmonious relationships with people must be in place before any true worship can take place. That's why when we come in here on Sunday mornings or any time that we gather as believers to worship God, that our heart needs to be in the right place. And I'm speaking right to myself. There's been times I've come in here and might have been angry with someone. And then I had to stop before I could do anything else and say, God, here I am, forgive me. Before I can even come and give you what I have to offer you, I got to go make that right. And that's when, later on, in a few moments, when we have the altar call, that's why prayer, and that's what the altar call is. It's an act of commitment, it's an act of reflection, it's an act of obedience of what he may be asking us to do. Yes, he may be asking us to come and to spend some time with you, but he may be, before you come and offer yourself to him, he'll say, you need to make things right. That's why reconciliation is important. The next point on here is reconciliation is urgent. The second illustration stresses the importance of making things right quickly. Jesus urges us to have a sense of urgency. When it comes to reconciling with an opponent, most likely someone outside of the church. This is why he says in 25 and 26, make friends quickly with your opponent at law while you are with him on the way, so that your opponent may not hand you over to the judge. This illustration assumes that you owe your accuser a debt of some kind, and to click on it, he is taking you to small claims court. But this is what he's saying. Jesus is saying, don't wait until you get to the court to work out some kind of deal. Settle out of court. Don't wait till you get to church and allow things of this nature to convince you of being right with your brother or sister. Because you may not have time to do it before you get here. He's saying it is urgent. Reconciliation is a very important thing because we're good at playing the game of being a believer. Got everything in check. Going to church, check. Got going to Sunday school, check. Got this, check. But have we got that box checked when someone makes us angry or we've angered them? Then we go to the point of saying, you know what? I was in the wrong. Or better yet, going to them and being the bigger person says, look, even though in your mind you know they're wrong, you're going to say, look, I want to apologize. I want things to be right with you so I can be made right and be at peace with God. Because that's what Jesus was trying to get them to understand. They had the understanding that murder was wrong, but he wanted them to understand even our words, our actions, our attitudes, of the way we treat others can be just as bad as killing them physically. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for this day. And Lord, I thank you for the words that you have spoken today through your word. And I pray, Father, as we come to this time of commitment, this time of invitation, this time of reflection, Father God, that you will search our hearts, Father, and if there's anything that is there that is not of you, Lord, I pray that we come and be made right, Lord. First, there's things we need to reconcile with someone else. Lord, that we don't hesitate to do that. Because before we try to bring you a gift, Father, it's worthless if we have something against someone else. You say, leave it at the altar and go and make it right. And then come and present your gift. So, Father, I just pray, Lord, if there's someone in this congregation, Lord, that has never made that commitment, Lord, that decision to follow your Son as Lord and Savior, I pray, Lord, that they could realize today can be that day for you. That it's called upon you. Believe in their heart and speak with their mouth, they shall be saved, Father. Thank you for everything you're doing. We ask this all in Christ's name. Amen. Let's stand. Again, I just want to say, church, thank you for allowing me to come and bring God's word in the absence of our pastor. Don't forget, again, tonight, our business meeting, church conference at 6 p.m. Let's sing our outside. Praise God for